Okay.
What's up, everybody? It is the Dark Conservatarian, and I am here with a debate stream. It's been a little bit since I had one of these, but here we are back, and I am debating a Marxist. What should we? Actually, I probably should have talked about this off air, Mister Libertarian Marxist, of what you want to refer to yourself as. Like, do you have a nickname that we can call you right here on stream?
Just call me a libtard.
Just call you did just call you libtard? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, a guy with a sense of humor. I like it. But yeah, so libtard here, or I might as well just call you Marxist at that point. But Mr. Marxist, right here, we have debated a little bit on Discord. Very briefly, he's just some random guy who popped up in Incredible Aspie's server, and I don't mean that snobbishly, by the way, Mr. Marxist, but Mr. Marxist here was a guy who popped up in Aspie's Discord server because I guess he shills out the link for his Discord out in public for anyone to basically join. And when I saw him come in, I was all like, oh, look, an oxymoron, referring to the title that he refers to himself. It's not that I'm actually calling you a moron, just FYI on that front, Mr. Marxist. And so we got into a little bit of a spat, and it got into eventually to a point of where I was all like, I would like to exploit this opportunity to take this live stream onto, or this debate onto an actual live stream so that people can actually see it, instead of us just ranting back and forth to each other via text on a Discord server. But yes, Renox says in the live chat, sorry for the rude remark, bro. You're cool. Well, it's all right, Renox said. But yeah, to explain to the live chat, the biggest reason why I had that little introductory footage is because I don't know how to get my OBS live stream set up so that before they go live, I can like shill out the link to all the Discord servers. So just while I am not showing my own face, just while I'm not talking, I just have that footage playing while I get the link shared out before I actually start, showing my own self and talking. But anyway, so one question I guess we'll kind of pick up on, Mr. Marxist, in our little discussion that we had is what is the big difference between Marxist Leninism and the type of Marxism that you ascribe to? Like, what's the disagreements that you have with Marxist Leninism?
Um, First of all, it's it it it's the authoritarian rule. Um, the one, especially the one that occurred during Stalinism. That wasn't correct. That wasn't true Marxism at all. It's not what Marx would agree with. It was just there was still oppression within the workers, and yeah, and millions died due to it. And I oppose it. You oppose it.
Right. I mean, I can
Yeah.
understand that may be. I don't know. I do not know if I would say unintended result of what Stalin actually did, but the general goal, um, seems to be all the same, and that being public ownership, or as opposed to private ownership of the means of production. And the biggest thing, I mean, whatever minutia that we have differentiating the two, Marxist-Leninism and your general philosophy of Marxism, the general problem that I have with Marxism in general is the violent seizure of the means of production, regardless of how that you want to do it via the state or mob rule or whatever else have you. That was the more relevant part that I was sort of tackling in the Discord server. And on the front of Karl Marx and government, like, I'm not so sure if he was outright against the idea of a state, because from what I've read, he was fairly advocating of the state in order to sort of seize means of production and, enforce that sort of rule. I'll even give you a link of where exactly that I read it, but what I have to say in response to that.
Yes, he believed so. It will work for a temporary amount of time, but due to imperialism from the West, it prolonged to the point where we had food shortages and need to turn the society into a state capitalist. I, I think that was just I think it was pretty dumb from the West to and I still believe in the violent seizure of the means of production because we can't allow us workers to be oppressed by corporations and capitalism.
Well, if he still advocated for the state, I mean, whether that be for the short term or the long term, and by the way, there's the article right there that I read that from. But what was I gonna say? I mean, as it be the even just the short-term advocacy of a state, that state has a very high potential for it to be misused and abused, or misused in your belief, anyways, misused in general for authoritarian purposes like Stalin and whatnot. Like, I don't think that Lenin put into consideration or the entailment of the Holodomor, for example, and all the other atrocities that Stalin had led off to. But that's the ultimate goal that ends up, or not the ultimate goal, but the ultimate result of what happens within communism is a bigger state, a bigger government that wants to seize all business and whatnot, and it's just the power is so centralized to where that you get a dictator that ends up abusing that power. I mean, that's what I have to say about that front. And I'll get on to responding to what you have to say about business ownership and how it's supposedly oppressive. I obviously disagree with that, but I just want to hear what you have to say in response to what I said right there.
Listen, um, first of all, the workers are the ones that make up the business. Without the workers, the business can't function. Without the boss, the business can't function. Second, and yet, the workers are paid peanuts, while the boss profits off the workers, exploits them, and makes of money. An example is Jeff Bezos, and um, and also in Africa, we're not underdeveloped, like overexploited by the West, like seriously overexploited. The richest people in my country, Kenya, are all either Indian or white, and in a sense, yeah, I hate capitalism.
Wait a minute. All the people in your country are either Indian or white?
No, all the rich people, like most of them.
Oh, most of the rich people. Okay. Well, putting race aside, because I do not know what the exact system is in Kenya. If there's like any law that is explicitly intended or explicitly says that no, black people cannot own big businesses, cannot get rich or whatever. But nonetheless, as far as like business owners go, I mean, organizations need leadership in general. I mean, the workers, not all of them have a sort of a leadership qualification or leadership capabilities. That's what I would say that the biggest purpose of a boss is. I mean, sure that the leadership can be rather flawed at a lot of times, but more times than not, or more times than not, I would say that not all workers are qualified fully for a managerial position or a ownership position. I mean, of course, a business needs some workers to end up in order for that business to grow. But me, I see that as not really a bad thing. That workers would be, getting paid a wage labor in order to ultimately help grow that company. It's kind of a mutual agreement, a sort of I don't know, a symbiotic, well, symbiotic, that might be the wrong word, but a kind of a sort of symbiotic relationship in which both parties sort of advantage off of each other. The business owner gets growth out of their business from the help of other people working within the business, and in turn, the worker gets a job rather than no job, or even a better paying job than what they were working beforehand. Say if they went from the position of a cashier to a welder, for example.
Well, I guess so, maybe in America, but in Kenya it's a bit different.
Okay.
And
Well, then I guess there's a
yeah,
bit of a conversation that happened there. Explain how Kenya is set up to where that it isn't exactly how I explained it.
um, in Kenya, like most of the workers are probably uh they probably work in constructions, um and they work for hospitals, and normally, they don't pay that much, and normally they don't get rises. Like for the past 20 years, the poverty rate hasn't increased or decreased just that much, and our country hasn't really developed.
They
Yeah,
don't
and
pay.
most of the people don't. Yeah, we don't get pay rises, and there's no minimum wage to enforce. So uh, you you, you either paid from around, you can be paid anything, and that's how lots end up in poverty.
I'm not. I'm not for the minimum wage myself as a rather libertarian capitalist or capitalist libertarian, but nonetheless, I would also have to call into question what is the standard of living, or what is the price of living within Kenya would be another question, and also what is the wage of a typical Kenyan construction worker. Maybe that's something that I'll
Uh,
Google right now, but go on.
Most of them live in slums, like Kibera, right? It's one of the biggest slums in the world. I think around hundreds of thousands live there, and there are also many slums like that in Kenya, and uh, yeah, like 60% of Kenyans live under poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh, Trying to see if there's like a. I'm getting some percentages in my little DuckDuckGo search here. Um, Cost of living in Kenya, $727 average in 10 plus cities or ranked. I'll pull up that link. But I guess a big part of it is like I'm sorry for whatever practical effects it is happening in Kenya. I do not know the full story of it. If there's like any government intervention that is preventing workers from that is explicitly preventing workers from being able to raise themselves up from poverty or whatever, I would have to. That's a big question in my mind because it a lot of times when people go pointing out as to how that people are impoverished, it's like an indirect or even a direct effect of what government has enacted.
Yeah.
Being over regulatory, favoring one business over another in, you know, by giving subsidies or bailouts to one business as opposed to another. There's even the minimum wage, for example. At least in Walmart's mind, anyways, the reason why that they want to hire minimum wage, even though they do not start off their workers at $15 an hour, the alleged reason as to why that they advocate for a higher minimum wage is so sort of to kill their small business competition. And so, yeah, that's a negative effect being caused by advocacy for bigger advocacy and even enactment of bigger government policies, more intrusive government policies. Um,
Uh, when that create jobs for Walmart, then when they create when they crush the small businesses, when they be able to gain the workers from the small businesses, and also when they're able to monopolize on the situation. I think I don't I think the minimum wage should be raised to up to $15 because most of the workers aren't happy that it's dissatisfied dissatisfied with what they earned, and yeah, and I think it should be raised, even though it kills small businesses. It creates jobs opportunities from the big companies such as Amazon and Walmart,
but
and
that statement is kind of self-defeating because if businesses end up getting killed off, then that means less job opportunities, less job openings for workers to take up.
not really.
Uh,
Amazon and Walmart will
yes,
definitely
it
need
does.
more labor. Uh, Not really. Listen,
That's
listen.
that's what happened in
Um,
Seattle, though. Not
Or can you explain?
not to a huge extent. It wasn't a huge extent. In fact, it was kind of small. But all the same, when the immediate effects after Seattle had implemented their $15 minimum wage, it ended up that workers, that restaurant workers more specifically, they either had their hours cut or they just completely laid off workers entirely. So there's that little thing right there. I could go on further
Uh,
about the effect of minimum wage in other cities here in the United States as well, but I guess I'll start off with that.
yeah, sure.
Was there something more that you wanted to say, though?
No.
Oh, I thought you wanted to expand on that point about minimum wage. All right.
Um,
Um,
well, I yeah, well, I have another point to state. I think America is quite behind when it comes to equality within first world countries and poverty rate compared to countries like Sweden and Denmark. And I think and all I think they should provide welfare programs for such that earn minimum wage to create monetary incentive.
well, I guess for starters, I'll say that you mentioned equality as to how that is a bad thing. I mean, I don't see that as a bad thing in of itself. I mean, I could absolutely
Well,
I could absolutely
well,
not care
it
less.
is.
What?
It is. It is. Um, First of all, you have
How?
billionaires like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and yet the people are sleeping on the streets, the people are dying due to poverty, people who can't afford healthcare, and yet the billionaires such as Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and they make the money entirely. They exploit the workers and they don't pay taxes. Like Amazon have evaded, I think they evaded um, tax for 2 years.
Well,
They're supposed to pay like millions of dollars.
here's the thing. Even if you were to take $1 billion, or let's say even just $500 million from either Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, and distributed that equally to all the homeless people and the people below the poverty line and whatnot, that would still remain a whole lot of inequality between the poorest people and the richest people within this country. Maybe marginally, not quite as much, but there's still a whole lot of equality there remaining, even though that there was that money taken and given to the poor people. So the, the the fact in of itself that there are rich people within the United States or throughout the world in general, I don't see as a problem in of itself. The question is, how is it that poor people are poor, or what can we do to fix that solution, or rather than what can we do to decrease other people's wealth?
Taxing the rich.
Right.
You need to you said you need to set maximum wages that CEOs and CEOs and other chief executives can earn, and there should be welfare programs introduced, Medicare for all, free condoms, and yeah, basically the government should intervene in the economy and regulate companies such as Amazon.
I would say that it's kind of one of the smaller issues of mine. I mean, if you want to go on talking about as to how we need more welfare or whatever else, I have like less of a gripe with that. Although I would heavily advocate for a reform to the welfare system because the work requirement has been taken out under Obama here in the United States. Um, I'm gonna just say that for later. I was trying to search up the average salary of construction workers in Kenya, but I cannot find it thus far. But nonetheless, oh god, what was I going on about? As far as welfare goes, that is somewhat of a tolerable compromise in my opinion. But again, heavy reforms, and I guess there is still more of the ethical question in what we do. Um, I mean, if you want to like tax somebody just a little bit more, that's not as much of a gripe of what Marxists ideally advocate for, and that is we just up and take away their whole business. And even with the welfare being provided, I would still ask the question, do they really have a right to them resources or that money even that we are giving to them, poor people
Yes,
or anyone else?
yes. As long as you're citizens of the country, you should have the rights and resources to whatever the government can provide.
They have the right to
I
pursue.
believe,
Go on.
yes, I believe privatization is theft, and everyone should have equal resources to
That what is
whatever
theft?
is possible. Privatization.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna be a big gripe that we're gonna have between each other. What was the other thing? What was the thing that you said a bit earlier that I was almost wanting to respond to before I let you continue?
About the Seattle minimum wage
Oh
increase.
no, that it wasn't. It wasn't that. It was something else that you had just mentioned. Oh god, I was about to go on about it, but then I forgot it. Privatization is theft. I guess I'll just go on about that. I don't see as to how that privatization is theft. If a person was to privately own. Oh, wait, now I remember what was the earlier point that I wanted to mention. People have a right to pursue the needs that they need to live within society or live in general. People have a right to pursue that, but they don't have a right to be provided other people's resources for them to be for them to live. Like they don't have a right for another person to be their provider. That's what I that's what my libertarian beliefs tell me anyways. And also
When you're referring to another person,
what?
are you referring to the government? When you're referring to another person, are you referring to the government?
Sorry, what?
Or when you're referring to another person, are you referring to the government?
Well, the government taxes other people, and in some cases, the government does just more than just tax another person in order to give the necessary resources to another person. Um, yeah, like the minimum wage, for example. The minimum wage would be a big example of outside of taxation, how the government is making sure that a person is another person's provider. Oh, you want to pay your worker a lower wage because you think either A, they are not really worth a higher salary than what you're already paying them, or B, because you don't have it within your budget, or you think that you don't have it within your budget. Well, no, we're going to say that that worker has a right to a higher wage being hired under your business, so therefore we're going to force you to pay more to your worker. Um, and even with taxation, that's still saying that somebody else, that somebody has a right for somebody else to be their provider, because rich people, and even the middle class for that matter, get taxed and the money goes to the government for the government to take and start spreading it around via the welfare state and whatnot.
Yes, yes. I think first of all, there's a poll that shows that most people support Medicare for all, and that's an example of a welfare program that should be provided to everyone. And other examples should be free education and um, defining reforming the police and uh, reforming the roads. I think like most people like when you find out about the pause, you realize that most people are in such a support of progressive policies, and that it's not the ones normally that are not in favor are the 1%.
The what you want to do with the 1%?
The ones that are normally not in favor with such.
Oh, the ones who are normally not in favor of welfare increases and whatnot. I mean, there's like I said with Walmart, for example, they advocate for a higher minimum wage, not for the purposes that you advocate for a higher minimum wage or any other leftist advocates for a minimum wage, but there are some of those who do advocate for some form or another of a more intrusive government, be it for malicious or well-intended purposes. Um, or there are the people who are just like the I don't want to mention these people as an example, but I'm just going to stick with them anyways. People like the Koch brothers who have an actual principled reason as to why that they don't think, as to why they think that a higher welfare system is unethical, in under libertarianism, right-leaning libertarianism, more specifically. What else
Uh,
was I gonna say? Whenever you find the time, I would ask the question or pose the question: how is privatization theft? But you go on with what you want.
okay, I'll just address that one right here now. First of all, in the beginning, there was no privatization. Um, the subsistence in which the community, it was probably small communities, they would own whatever land was there, and they would normally redistribute it to its fellow members, and 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 resources were typically shared, such as food. They normally eat together, but and when we transitioned from feudalism to capitalism, and there was lots of land that was stolen from the people, and a lot of people were killed from it, especially the women, because they were oppressed through capitalism and its privatization, and those women are labeled as witches, and around of those being killed, women ended up being killed due to the inherent evil of capitalism.
I mean, the concept of privatization might not have been something that came about until recent few centuries. I mean, of course, people were more tribal, like way back in the beginning of humanity. Either they were tribal in a good sort of fashion, like you said, they just cooperated with each other and just shared each other's resources, willfully and voluntarily, might I add, not by threat of gunpoint by some Stone Age version of a Bolshevik or whatever, but um, and or there were people who are tribalistic in a we want their stuff, so let's declare war and just rape and pillage or whatever. But that's not really what I'm defending, and I wouldn't even really call that privatization. The idea of stealing somebody else's property or whatever, that's not within the principle of privately owning stuff that I fall under, that I adhere to, anyways. Like stealing is an illegitimate way of acquiring resources, and if we wanted to go back to the government, talking about the government, one thing that I would point to of being unethical on the government's part is an over allotted amount of taxation. I mean, I don't fully agree with the principle of taxation is theft, but I definitely sympathize with it. And that's an example of the government stealing things. And also, like, confiscation of resources, like how Mao Zedong, he confiscated all the farm equipment during the Great Leap Forward, etc. And he wasn't stealing that stuff for private ownership, but for anyone's sake, more for public ownership was what he was stealing it for. But I'll let you go on since I rambled enough.
Uh, Wait, you think that taxation is theft from the U.S. government, right? But
Somewhat,
and
yes.
yeah, yeah, and that's why we need a progressive president like Bernie. Bernie will finally make us realize the purpose of our taxes in Medicare for all, improving welfare programs, increasing the minimum wage. Because I think right now Biden isn't
I mean, Ber-
paying taxes under Biden is it's kind of redundant.
I mean,
And
Bernie Sanders is not going to make me become more sympathetic to the idea of higher taxes. So I do not know exactly why you bring him up.
What? Uh, Wait. One question. One question.
All right.
Do you pay taxes?
I do.
Or uh, you hate paying taxes?
Do I hate paying taxes?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I guess so, but it's not, for me personally, anyways, a high enough amount to where that I am willing to bitch and gripe about my own personal tax situation. Anyways, I mean, the income tax rate that I pay is still pretty low for me personally to not really notice it. But it's when it's the small business owner more specifically. I mean, yeah, the big business owner, they can digest higher tax rates, but smaller business owners that get taxed and whatnot, I would say that they have more of a trouble with taxation, and in their idea or their situation, excuse me, they're being stolen from essentially with the higher tax rates that they get. There is a
Okay. Okay. Don't you
go on.
don't you feel it's a bit unfair for you to pay taxes, but not the 1% such as Amazon? They evade taxes and they normally use loopholes to not pay the required amount of taxes, and the government doesn't do anything. Well, if you don't pay taxes, you have consequences.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
if there was some loophole that I or anyone else could exploit, like if, say, if I was to have kids, that would be a loophole that I would be able to exploit. And I mean, the whole tax benefits and loophole argument is I don't know, a little bit inconsequential to what I'm saying, but okay.
Oh, what's your opinion on Amazon not paying tax? So, like, do you think they should pay the required amount of taxes, like the millions of dollars that they're supposed to be paying?
I th-
Or
I think my opinion is that I think the tax code should be more simplified, and I don't think there should be as many loopholes as there are modern day. And yes, this applies to Amazon as well as all businesses.
oh, okay,
But at the same time, I want I want the loopholes to be low, but I also want the actual proposed rates from the government to be low.
sure.
All right, so I actually have a question in the live chat for you from one of my from my audience here. If you don't mind me reading it for you, Common Sense guy goes
Sure.
asking Zach, what is his definition of privatization? Is it people owning businesses, land, or property? So, how do you address that?
Um, yes, yes. It's whenever someone wait. It's whenever someone owns the means of production, businesses, land, or property. Yes. That guy. He put in a well definition.
I mean, if a person is just starting off a new business, and the way that they acquire that piece of property or whatever to start their business, they do it through a voluntary transaction. You know, they legitimately bought a piece of property from JP Wygand or something like that, for example, or they even claimed a new piece of land that wasn't claimed by anyone. That's not theft. I'm gonna just say
Yes, it
plain
is.
simple.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
Um,
not. Who are they stealing from in that case? In the exact example that I brought up there.
okay. Let me fall back to Africa, right? Look at Zimbabwe. They had to do a land reform because of imperialism. The white people came, stole the farms, and they exploited the land, exploited the workers, and then decided to do a land reform in which
Well,
they took the
hold
which
on.
they took the okay.
Let me clarify. I'm not talking about imperialism and conquest. I was just talking about purely about a new business starting up their own business. I mean, yes, conquest. You and I can pretty much be in agreement that conquest is is generally, anyways, a bad or immoral thing. But I'm just talking about a singular business owner starting up a new business, voluntarily doing a transaction with somebody so that they can buy a new piece or buy a piece of land that was already previously owned, or claim a new piece of land that wasn't previously owned beforehand. How is that specifically theft?
Typically, land is sold off for very cheap, and
That's
they're
not theft either.
normally wait, let me finish. Normally when they buy land, they normally exploit it, they pollute the land, and when they sell it off, they sell it off at a worse condition than it was previously. And and I think the government should own land in order to fight for climate change, because at the moment, things like fracking and uh,
How
and oil, they contribute a lot to our pollution.
how does climate
and and
go on?
and the 1% are no what the 1% are the ones that are causing this climate change, while we're the ones who have to pay for it, which is a bit unfortunate.
How does fracking or climate change or anything else that, any of the like indirect consequences of industry have to do with how a business owner or a new up and starting business owner getting themselves a new piece of land to start their business? Uh, how does that have anything to do with with that?
Wait, be right back.
Okay. Apparently, Mr. Marxist has left for a bit, so I guess I'll read up on the chat here for a little bit. And for all of you all who are enjoy, oh, excuse me, for all of you who are enjoying the conversation right now, don't forget to hit that like button down below. It sort of helps in the algorithm, or even a dislike would help boost the algorithm too, for that matter. If you don't like the conversation so much, but be much appreciated, y'all. Um, I have a fun question from JC Armitage. I'll save that into Common Sense Guy. Zach, how old is he? I don't know. I did not get the guy's age. Maybe I'll ask that out of curiosity if I remember it, but I'm going to save.
Okay, I'm back.
All right. So there's actually a question here from Common Sense Guy that he just asked out of curiosity. I mean, you don't have to answer this question, obviously, but how old are you, Mr. Marxist?
16.
You're 16, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sheesh.
How old are you?
I'm 26.
Oh.
So uh, I don't mean for this to be an unfair power dynamic in regards of ages, y'all. I honestly thought that I honestly thought that Mr. Marxist was at least a college student or something, but no, he's not even out of high school. Huh. Oops. But let me just say that you sound much older than than you actually are, or perhaps it's just your deep native African voice coming out.
Yeah.
But to sort of speed along the conversation, JC Armitage has a question here for you as well. I got a fun question. If property is theft, is the state seizing the means of production considered theft? If not, then why is that not considered hypocritical?
Uh, well, when the state owns the means of production, how can there be theft? No, no. Listen. In privatization, when the state owns the means of production, it can give to the workers and other citizens for free. They can own this, they can own that. Yeah, and when there's privatization, it's only one person that owns the means of production under the expense of workers or property.
I would still I would still emphasize that if a business owner like got their property, got their business through legitimate means, through legitimate voluntary means, and then the government comes in saying, oh, we don't like the fact that you are quote unquote exploiting your workers, so therefore we're going to seize your business and the means of production and so forth, that really the government are the thieves in that scenario.
Uh, Not really, not really. First of all, if they do that, I think they should just put set on heavy regulations. And in case they do that, in case the the company or the business does not follow the state's protocols, the state has every means to take over the business.
I'm sorry. You want to repeat that? I do not know if that was made so if that point was made so clearly in a way that I could understand what you're trying to say.
Listen. Wait, can you retract what was the previous point?
The previous point that I made was if a business was founded and created by a person through legitimate means, and then the government comes in wanting to take that business away from that person, that really it's not the business owner that's the thief, it's the government that are the thieves.
Uh, yeah, I guess so. Unless if unless the workers are being exploited and the government fails to do so, then yes. But if there's nothing wrong happening, then yeah, sure. It it will be unfair.
So let me ask you, do you consider wage labor or employment, as I like to refer to it more of the times, do you consider that exploitation?
Yes.
Okay. How can workers be exploited? Says asks Derpy Redneck. And I guess that would just be the same question that I would pose to you if you don't mind answering that, Mr. Marxist.
Well, unless the capitalist doesn't make any profits, the workers are exploited. Typically, the capitalists they profit off the workers, they profit off the labor, they profit off exchange, and typically the workers don't benefit from the exchange. It's only the capitalists that profits from the exchange. They're the ones that make the money. They're the ones that climb up the social ladder, while the workers still end up in the working class for years and years and years. And typically, as I've said before, when a business can't function without workers, but a business can function without the boss.
Well, with the idea of a boss or business owner profiting, I mean, a business owner has to pay their house bills somehow, and I presume that you are like not having really an issue with business owners keeping a little bit more money to pay the general bills of the shop itself. But the reason as to why that profit exists is so that people can advance either the business or advance their own life within society, for that matter. That's for the business owner, anyways. The worker, they don't technically make a profit. I mean, unless they, I don't know, sell a small hobby like knit sweaters or something on the side of whatever prime job that they do. But the idea of profit, I do not see as to how that exactly is theft. The main thing that I consider to be theft is if you're forcefully taking something away from somebody. Or if in the case of employment or labor, the only way that I can see that a business owner is stealing labor from a worker is if they are like literal slaves, like hold the worker at gunpoint and or under the chain to work for them. But within our society, at least, I mean, I do not know how the laws are in Kenya that restrict people from being able to just quit their job. But here in America and a lot of the Western world, we are allowed to quit our job just whenever we want to. If we think that we are not being paid a sufficient wage for our lifestyle, we can just go on to a different, working for a different company, potentially, anyways. And so, therefore, I'd say it's conclusively not theft.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Answer me this. why do 30 million Americans have to work two jobs if if they're not being exploited by the capitalists?
I don't see how 13 million Americans working two jobs plays into how it is theft. The little principle that I just explained right there. Um, why is it that they have to work two jobs? I'd have to dig into a little bit more research, but I guess the biggest reason as to why I'd say that people are being forced, or well, forced. I use that word that word loosely. They're being forced under their own life circumstances, not being forced by any particular person within the economy, but they're being forced to where they think they have to make the decision to work two jobs because of in inflation of the cost of living is the long and short, I guess I will say that to that answer. But aside from that, I don't see how but aside from that anyways, a person having to work two jobs, that's not theft of people's labor either.
Um, but it is exploitation. Listen, I think
Well, and I guess
each worker should be paid living wages. But no, the capitalist should pay living wages to the workers uh, because they're working for them. If the capitalist can make up a living wage, so should the workers, because they're all involved in the same means of production or the same business, and they all contribute to the amount of profit the business makes.
you're kind of roboting a little bit there. Might want to
Oh,
restart your last sentence right there.
okay. I think. Oh, is it still there?
I'm still here.
Wait, no. Am I still sounding like a robot?
What?
Am I still sounding like a robot?
No. You're not still sounding like a robot. You're fine now.
Okay. What I was saying was that the capitalists should at least give, if they're able to live off our living wage, right? The workers should also be able to live on the living wages because they're all involved in the business. They all contribute to the profits, and yeah, they shouldn't have to work two jobs to be able to survive off of society and to feed their families and feed themselves.
All right.
And
So, if I may respond, the point that you said earlier,
yes,
the point that you said earlier about what I described there, if you're describing that as exploitation, first of all, I guess I'll have to say exploitation did nothing wrong. Because grammatically, you might be correct that that's exploitation, but if that really is exploitation, well, then I see exploitation as not being inherently immoral. And, sorry, what was the second part of your point there?
uh, that that workers should earn the same living wages as the capitalists are.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I remember what your point was. It was about paying a living wage to everybody. I mean, ideally speaking, we would like for everybody to make a wage or earn a living to where that they can sufficiently provide for themselves. But ultimately, if a person is not working hard enough to where that they're truly worth it, I don't see as to why that even morally, much less ethically, a business owner should be obligated to pay a living wage to somebody. Like if say a worker is just consistently on their phone all the time and they are not like really cranking out the workload, well then I don't see them being worthy of $15 or $20 an hour or so forth. If they get stuck on $8 an hour because a person goes seeing that because a business owner sees that they are working too slow to be worthy of any higher than $8 an hour, then I'm not going to tell that business owner, hey, pay your worker higher. Much less am I going to advocate for laws forcing them to do that.
Uh, Listen, there should be laws. There should be laws implemented in the business, okay? That shouldn't allow for such to occur. Um, the great line once said, "Those who should not work, should not eat," and I advocate for that, right? advocate that the workers should also work as well. They should also work to earn a living wage, the same as the capitalist. And if
Okay.
you're being lazy, then I agree you shouldn't earn the living wage. You should earn the compulsory minimum wage.
Okay. Well, if a person really is sufficiently working and they are still not being paid a sufficient wage, I mean, the one question that I would pose is, can the business owner do they really have it within their budget to pay that worker an actual sufficient living wage, first of all? And secondly, yes, we would still prefer that they would pay them a higher wage. But ultimately, if you go advocating for a higher minimum wage, you're also going to be putting a negative effect on all the other businesses that have all these workers that are not sufficiently working within their businesses. You're just going to be affecting them in their decision making at the same time as the person who is like just squandering the potential of their worker who is actually working hard. Um, I guess I'll leave it at that. What do you want to say?
Uh, um, do you, uh, I think even if small businesses collapse, they should be still able to recover. I think the government should provide assistance in small businesses that are going to experience failure from the rise in minimum wage, and so as not to create a job loss. And secondly, uh,
You think
yeah,
question, you think that the government should provide subsidies to small businesses so that they do not go out of business from a minimum wage hike? Am I understanding you correctly?
yeah, yes,
Uh, I mean, I disagree. I'd say that they shouldn't be forced to pay the higher minimum wage in the first place, so that therefore we wouldn't have to put a strain on our own federal, state, or whatever government budget, to be subsidizing all these small businesses and other sorts of businesses as well.
um, uh, well, yeah, true, but what about the stimulus checks?
What about stimulus checks?
Yeah,
I think even if I was to take a little bit more of a utilitarian opinion as regards to the stimulus checks in the light of the coronavirus and whatnot, I would still not want the stimulus checks to be handled in the way that they were. Like, for one, there's a whole bunch of poison pills that were put in with the stimulus checks bills, and government bailouts, like the first one that was negotiated by Trump and the Republican Senate and Democrat House. The first one that happened in early 2020, where that he was bailing out airports and so forth. And also, I would even say that anybody who is still working a job, they don't get qualified for a stimulus check. Like me, I worked the whole entire freaking time during the pandemic and lockdowns and whatnot. I was considered one of the essential workers, and therefore I say that myself and all other working people, for that matter, do not deserve a stimulus check because they weren't forcefully fired by the government, or they weren't fired because of the government forcing the business's hand. Hey, you have to shut down your business, so therefore, because we do not want people to get sick, and therefore they decide we're gonna have to lay you off, Mister Johnson, or something like that. Um, but yeah, even if I was to be a little bit more of a utilitarian or a pragmatist on it, I would definitely not handle them the way that they were. Only stimulus checks for the unemployed. But even then, I'm still kind of on edge about that idea, because it still has increased our already indebted nation as far as its spending goes.
yeah. Also, I'm sure you're aware that back in the 70s, the minimum wage in America was about $6, and due to inflation, it will correlate to today to $25. Why do you still oppose the minimum wage, even though uh, in the 60s it was $2, in the 70s it was $6, and now it's it's meant to be like $25. Why do you still oppose it? Surely over time, people, the current minimum wage won't be enough for someone to live under the minimum wage.
Why is it that I oppose the minimum wage? Is that your question?
No, no. Why you currently find the current minimum wage? I suppose, because back in the 70s, the minimum was like $6, and right now to correlate to, wait,
I'm sorry, I'm still not fully hearing or understanding your question. Uh, Say it again. Why what about the minimum wage in spite of it being $6 an hour in the 70s and inflation wasn't as high as it is now? I think he might have left again. Mr. Marxist is AFK again. We have a very lively we have a very lively chat here. I'd like to thank everybody for joining. Derpy Redneck, Myth Cuttlefish, Night Shift 10,000, the Crypto Bastiat, Common Sense Guy, Reason Vision, and Miss Mista, and Miss Mista, who I think is a friend of Mr. Marxist, and there's another guy a little bit further up here that I think he might have left, but excuse me. Verified News, he was on earlier. Do not know if he's still in here. Where was that other guy? Dang, it's been quite a while. Nivian Lakani, who I think is Nivian Lakani. I do not know for certain if that's a friend of Mr. Marxist or not, but nonetheless, thank you for coming. And Muhammad Nur Muhammad. This rich man was disproving Mr. Lakani. Okay. I think people were just primarily arguing with each other back and forth in the earlier parts of my stream. Alright, you're back, Mr. Marxist?
yeah, yeah, I'm back. What did I miss?
Nothing. I was just thanking the chat for joining along here. And sorry to say, y'all, but I'm not going to be able to read up on all your chat comments because you just posted so much. I love you, audience. I really do. Anyway, so I still don't understand fully of what your question is to me. Why what the minimum wage, in spite of it being $6 an hour back in the 70s and inflation wasn't as high back then as it is now?
Yeah, yeah. Like now it's become harder for workers to live under the minimum wage,
I would
and
go on.
yeah,
Well, I would say that part of
no,
that is because of in the bigger cities, they have a higher minimum wage than that of, the national average. The national average still being 725 now. I don't think that Biden and the Democrats have gotten through their agenda of increasing the minimum wage more than 725 yet anyways. But yeah, in a lot of the bigger cities, it's a lot higher than that. Like I said, Seattle has 15, New York has $15 an hour. I think there are some areas of Kansas City that have like 10.50 or something an hour. San Francisco, I think, is even as high as 16. It's definitely higher than 12, as far as I remember. And because of all these cities like having higher than the national minimum wage, it's because of the cost of living costing higher in those cities, and so therefore that gets lumped in with the statistic as to how that the statistics that show as to how much harder it is for people to live in the country and provide for themselves in spite of the minimum wage, in spite of the condition of the minimum wage.
uh,
It's
uh,
it's minimum wage inducing inflation into our economy of sorts.
okay, okay. One question: when they raise the minimum wage, you said that there'll be an impact on the small businesses when they raise the minimum wage. Do you have any proof?
Do I have any proof of that? Hello? I think I might have lost Mr. Marxist right there. I know that I am not, I know it's not my connection because my connection is still running solid and I'm still seeing the live chat floating by there. So we're just gonna wait for Mr. Marxist to, get his connection, together. Oh god. Moon-based radio, why? Jason Armitage says inflation wasn't as high back in the 70s because not as much money was printed back then like there is now. Yeah, money printing does have a large contribution and an even bigger contribution to our inflation than minimum wage. I will definitely agree with that, JC Armitage. But I still, from my observation of things, say that minimum wage has somewhat of a contribution to inflation as well. But even both of those are government action, and they are not because of the business saying, I don't think you're as much worthy of XYZ wage. And by the way, yeah, he just left. He might try to join back this call. Let's hope so. Anyways, by the way, West Savage, I might read your DMs here in a little bit, but 1 second. Okay. We're just gonna give here a little bit. I just fact dropped DarkCon hard as fuck right now. Be warned, I document flooded you. Alright, derpy redneck. Maybe this calls for a Strike Force editorial about the minimum wage. If I ever get around to your sources. Oh, hello again, Mr. Marxist. You there?
I'm back.
Alright.
Sorry, cut out.
You just have a hiccup in your internet right there?
Yeah.
Oops. Well, the last question I think you asked me was, I say that the minimum wage hurts small businesses, and you were asking, do I have any proof of that?
Yeah.
You know, I do not have as extensive of a amount of proof that I think you would like me to provide you. That's definitely something that I'll have to look more into. But, so, a way for small businesses try to alleviate the situation of the government raising the minimum wage on them, so that they can prevent themselves from going out of business, is that they start laying off or even decreasing hours of workers, like in the example of Seattle that I mentioned earlier, and even New York for that matter. I mean, it's not proof to say per se, but it is it's at least some evidence, anyways, to the negative effects of a higher minimum wage.
Yeah. Um. Yeah.
You don't have anything more to say? And by the way, you keep on like clicking on the keyboard. Are you like talking to someone else at the same time of engaging in this debate?
No.
Oh, okay. Never mind. By the way, were you was any of these new accounts that I saw in the live chat you, Mr. Marxist? Like, what's your YouTube alias name?
Mrs. Mister.
Oh, Mrs. Mista, that's your profile. Okay. Yeah, I would kind of advise just future reference. This might be one of your first time few debates ever having, like, on YouTube and the internet in general, on a live stream anyways. Or actually, I'm not going to assume that. Is this your first ever live stream debate that you've participated in, Mr. Marxist?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, for future reference, though, piece of advice from a content creator that has been engaging in politics for 4+ years now. Um, Pay as little attention to the live chat as possible so that you get as least bit distracted by them when you're debating somebody. Just yeah, just a friendly piece of advice there. Myth Cuttlefish saying, "Ignore
Yeah.
chat. Always ignore chat."
What about you? You always reading chat, or
Sorry, what?
um I normally see you normally respond to chat. How doesn't that affect you too?
Sorry, what? How is what? I mean, the biggest reason as to why that I am paying attention to the chat is because this is my own live stream primarily. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a different rule when it comes to somebody who is like hosting the live stream versus a guest on a live stream and paying attention to the chat, because the host has to like pay at least some attention to their live stream so that, or their live chat anyway, so that they make sure that nothing nothing dangerous happens in the live chat, like doxing, releasing of private information or other stuff like that, or even like if somebody is more on edge about edgy comments that would plausibly get their live stream taken down in some cases. But even I, as a host, sometimes shut down the live chat if I think it's getting a little bit too distracting for me. But just as a general rule, it's a good idea to keep the chat ignored until you find a sufficient pausing moment in your dialogue with the other people on live stream.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for the info.
So I got a question for the entirety of the live chat. Are there any specific questions that you want to ask Mr. Marxist? Because I think the energy of the live stream is dying down a little bit, and we may just cut it off at the 1.5 hour mark, y'all. 1.5 hour, 1 hour 45 minutes.
Wait, can you repeat? It cut out.
Can I repeat? I think that was
Yeah,
your internet rather than mine, but the only thing that I
yeah.
was saying was if I was just saying to my live chat, if they have any questions for you that they specifically want to ask you, that they should post them right now, because the energy of the live stream is dying down a little bit, and thus we may cut this live stream out at 1.5 hours or 1 hour 45 minutes, something like that. But I guess one question that I want to ask, because one of the key things that was mentioned in the Discord conversation that you and I had was that the idea of the term libertarian Marxist. And I said that that's kind of oxymoronic, because libertarianism and Marxism do not mix with each other, because Marxism, yeah, like the way that I understand libertarianism is to be liberty for all, and that includes the ability to run your business, run your private property as you please, as long as you don't go infringing on other people's rights at the same time. And Marxism, like by default, is an invasion on that little liberty, so therefore, or that big liberty rather, and so therefore, by default, is not libertarian.
Um, yeah. There's a difference. Well, I had libertarianism I heard it from an anarchist. Uh, um,
Wait a
I
minute,
typed it in chat.
you saying that
Yeah.
libertarianism? You saying that libertarianism is like anarchism, or anarchism
It,
is? Sorry, what?
no,
Go
it
on.
was no, it was no. Its origin. It came from anarchism. It was created as a means of anarchism. Because at the time, the anarchist Pierre Proudhon,
Hmm.
I don't the French hated anarchism and had to create a different form of anarchism called libertarianism to fight against oppression from the government.
Hmm.
And yeah,
Well, I would say that that's not necessarily. It's not necessarily because of private property is bad as to why that the anarchists at that time were, or at least my guess would be anyways, that it's not, and going off by what you said anyways, my guess is that it's not because private property bad as to why the French anarchists of the time were rebelling against, we're just rebelling in general. It's because of government oppression. And I don't advocate for government oppression, and any true blue capitalist would not be advocating for government oppression. So it's, if anything, I would say that it was more the anarchists at the time that were more leaning towards what is the principles of capitalism as opposed to the government. With the implications I'm getting from what you said there, anyways.
Oh yeah,
But
I
I'll
I have
definitely
another question.
go
How
on.
is it, yeah, how is capitalism? How does it relate to being a libertarian when capitalism isn't really that freedom when 1% holds or owns half of the world's wealth?
Well, some of
Capitalism freedom
I just
because the many people, because most of the time the government controls capitalism, the big corporations, and as last month it shows through Robin Hood that the free market isn't really that free, and it's controlled by the big tech and the government.
oh
So
well,
how is capitalism free?
certainly. I mean, you go saying that the market is controlled by government. Did I hear you correctly? You said that the market is controlled by government. Is that essentially
Yes,
what you
the
said there?
concept of yeah, and the big corporations. I think the concept of free market is an illusion.
Well, you can think that all you want, but I was just wanting to ask for clarification on what you said there. I mean, I would agree that the government goes controlling the market too much than it should, but that's not capitalism. As I guess I'll pull up my definition of capitalism that I had used yesterday in yesterday's live stream. Um, Yesterday's live stream is I gone reading a definition as to how. Okay. Basically, the definition of capitalism, as I understand it, as I've always read it to be, is private ownership of business and the means of production, not as opposed to government ownership of stuff. Government ownership and management. This is from Investopedia. What is capitalism? Capitalism is an economic system in which private individuals or businesses own capital goods. No mention of government right there. The production of goods and services is based on supply and demand in the general market, known as a market economy, rather than through central planning, known as planned economy or command economy. Now, that later part right there, they are saying a command economy or a planned economy is basically by way of government stepping in. And they're saying that's not really what runs in tangent with capitalism. In fact, that runs in contradiction with capitalism, with this first paragraph here, anyways. The purest form of capitalism is free market or laissez-faire capitalism. Here, private individuals are unrestrained, that would include unrestrained by government. They may determine where to invest, what to produce or sell, and at which prices to exchange goods and services. The laissez-faire marketplace operates without checks or controls by government, I would say in parentheses. Today, most countries practice a mixed capitalist system that includes some degree of government regulation of business and ownership of select industries. Now, what they are saying there basically is that government and capitalism can work side by side with each other, but the government taking control of the economy and private property and whatnot, that does not run fluently in tangent with capitalism. In fact, more times than not, it runs in contradiction with capitalism. But I guess I would somewhat agree with the part that you said there, and I'm going to admit I kind of forgot some of the other stuff that you mentioned in your spiel there, but I'll let you talk since I talked plenty.
Sure. Um, Another question. Uh, do you think that communism can be achieved, or socialism when capitalism collapses? Do you think can be achieved?
Not really. I mean, if a person wants to set up their own hippie commune and go cooperatively owning goods and services instead of it being owned by a select few people, well, then that's fine. That can exist within capitalism. Like, there's nothing within capitalism that says that you cannot set up your own commune if you want to. But do I think that communism will be a thing that will run throughout all of the world, throughout all of society, once capitalism is extinguished? Do I think that communism will become a thing for all the world? No, not really. At least not your ideal of communism, anyways. I mean, you can have a totalitarian government that goes controlling all the economy in the name of communism, but do I believe
No,
that
no.
people? Sorry, I guess I'll just end what I'm
Like,
saying right there.
well, like after the government and the big corporations, the collapse after capitalism, I think the workers will finally have the chance to own the means of production, and true communism will finally be achieved, in which we can now abolish the state, we can now abolish money, and we can now abolish hierarchies. But I don't think true communism can be achieved within an authoritarian government, and if
Okay.
maybe for a short period of time, when the means of production have finally been given to the workers.
Let's say, for example, that we get this anarchist variant of communism that I think that you're implying to here, Mr. Marxist. Um, if within anarchy and this commune, somebody wants to start something that could be perceived as a business, and they keep the ownership of that entire business, that entire organization, or whatever, all to themselves, and they aren't so willing to just freely share their stuff with other people, what do we do about that? Does the mob come in with torches and pitchforks and overthrow them out of their business or whatever and seize it all?
No, we can try to through trade unions. Uh, if you look at the way socialism has been trying to be achieved, it's normally through trade unions and not the the violent seizure of the means of production. Like for example,
But
Catalonia, when they were as a socialist state, they achieved it through trade unions and not the violent seizure of the means of production.
I mean, if you want to be trying to advocate for trade unions or something else that is not so violently forceful to get your communism or socialism, I would say go for it, I guess. There's nothing that is unethical about that way of trying to get it, at least in my opinion, anyways. It's just the violent seizure of the means of production, and really, that's what you were basically advocating for earlier on Aspie's Discord server. Was that, oh yeah, we must that yeah, a violent seizure of the means of production is one method, anyways, towards getting business out of the hands of private owners.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the biggest problem that I have, and I guess my thing is, and I'm not referring to you specifically, but whenever I go talking to a lot of ANCOMs about their idea of a commune, an anarchist variant of communism, and whenever I go pushing them saying, what if a person wants to keep for themselves an excessive amount of resources and not share with everyone else, or even own their own business? Would the mob come in and just take that over? And more times than not, they say, yeah, that's how we're going to do it. And then it's at that point that I say, well, then you're going to have a bit of a fight on your hands. And at that point, I would say that it's not really anarchist. I mean, it's a mob rule that is enforcing communism instead of a state. But all the same, I have a hard time calling it libertarian or anarchist at that point when you go advocating for that. And at that point, you're just going to end up fighting with guns. The capitalists versus the communists within the, anarcho-commune society?
Um, yeah, 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 I think so, but maybe let's say in a communist society, um, people, if that doesn't work, it's not must for them to use a violent means, but instead they can just stop involving themselves in the business and make sure that the business shuts down, so that the capitalists can negotiate with the anarcho-communist for them to own the business altogether or to abolish it. Uh, yeah,
Okay,
because
so
normally businesses depend on the consumer. There's no consumer. I don't know. I don't understand how the such a business would run.
well, there might be not. Okay, so basically, what you're advocating for ideally is trade unions. That in the way of trade unions, you would try to shut down businesses. That would be the more preferred method as opposed to violent seizure.
Yes.
Okay, and if that's the method that you go for, that's all fair and well. I mean, that's the same idea within competition and capitalism as well. Well, that's not always explicitly the intent, but the idea is for businesses to be competing with each other, and if one business ultimately does not satisfy their customers and fails, then they get shut down and no longer existing. Like how Blockbuster, for example, is almost non-existent nowadays when they ended up competing with Netflix. And now with Netflix's stupid decisions, they are sort of failing as well. And Hulu and other streaming alternatives to Netflix are now starting to pick up the business from Netflix. So, but if you want to go with trade unions or whatever to try and shut down businesses, that's ethically all fine and dandy. Do I personally think that that's ultimately gonna happen? I don't really think so, but you can go ahead and try. Um, yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a minute.
All right, Mr. Marxist has left again. Um, what is his ideal world? As in, what does he think society would be? Asks Common Sense Guy. Um, I guess I'll save that question for later when he gets back, Common Sense Guy. Um, Mr. Mr. Marxist, what school do you attend? Says Renok said. I'll save that question too in my word pad. Um, okay, so was there something that you were wanting to pick up on, something that you wanted to say before I go talking any further?
Yes. Wait, no, 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 no. I'm fine with your point.
You're trying to make a point, or you're trying to find out what my viewpoint is?
No, no. I'm fine with it. It's a good point.
Oh, okay. So you're looking through your literature in order to bring it to me. Okay. Um, you go ahead and do that. I'm just like collecting questions from the chat. Um, I guess I'll save that question, or maybe you already answered it, Mr. Marxist, but save it anyways, just because why not? Hmm. Return to monk, says Myth Cuttlefish. Okay. And hello, Mr. Or excuse me, Metal Minister in the live chat. Glad that you can join the show. uh, what was I gonna? Too bad I'm watching on my phone. Otherwise, I could see what naughty Discord servers DarkCon is in. This is Metal Minister, right? I'm not on anything real naughty. But it's neither here nor there. I just like that he walked in. Oh. Metal Mister, I guess that might be a compliment that I'm just reading right there about the powder keg and cigar. Thanks, I guess. Metal Minister put forth his own circumstance, his own personal case. I'm in a union, it's trash, I have no choice or say what the union does with my dues. Alright. I didn't know if you wanted to address that, Mr. Marxist, or not.
Um, uh, which type of trade union?
Metal Minister,
Because I feel that
go on.
different trade unions have they serve different purposes and they have different impacts.
Oh, wait. Okay, I think I was misunderstanding what you were meaning by trade unions. You were talking about unions as in unions within a business. At first I thought you were talking about organizations that existed completely outside of the business, but you're talking about unions that exist within a business. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm outright anti-union myself, like worker unions. I'm not anti-worker unions, not outright anyways. But my thing with the unions is that I do not want them to be getting in bed with government so much, for one thing. And also, I don't. Unions can, and workers within a union can do whatever activism that they want to try and get themselves a better wage, better work conditions, or whatever. Just as long as they do not go outright violating other businesses' private property by just, I don't know, chaining themselves to the gate for the delivery trucks to roll in and other sort of stuff like that. Set ablaze the business or whatever. I deleted my Netflix ages ago. Hulu is superior, says Metal Minister. Yeah, I can pretty much agree. I mean, I think Hulu has all of the Star Treks, and it also has the Orville too, whereas Netflix does not have the Orville. Oh, I see that you're kind of debating with the live chat in the live chat right now, Mr. Marxist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait. Do you have your own Discord server?
Do I have my own Discord server?
Yeah.
I do, but you will probably get eaten alive in there. I mean, there's especially by one member in there particular. Are you sure that you want an invite into my Discord server?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'll just send it. Invite people. There's that for later, but I guess for right now, I don't know if there's like anything more that I have to ask, anything more that I have to address within this call. But were you just want to like call it good for this live stream, Mr. Marxist, or did you have something more that you wanted to say?
Yeah. No, no.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
DarkCon needs an age restriction. Ooh. You know what? You're right. I probably should put an age restriction on especially the NSFW channel, y'all. But Yeah, actually, I'll get to that right after this live stream here. But outside of the actual debating subject of this live stream, Mr. Marxist, are there any casual, cordial, or friendly words that you have to say in closing? Or I don't know, what do you have to say in closing of this debate in general?
Um, I think it was helpful. I think I found it a bit wholesome despite of how the um your subscribers reacted to my views, and I think it was um I enjoyed the stream. What about you?
All right, well,
Any love?
I'm glad that I was able to make a productive discussion, but I will say ultimately in the end, even though that we are having like a casual debate right here, if it comes to like a Bolshevik revolution or something else like that, and somebody be stepping on my private property trying to take it away or whatever, that's when that we might get a little bit more violently defensive. That's me talking about myself and other business owners. Just for the record. Take that
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
will, but anyway, but if you want to like try and attain your society outside of any means like that, or any means outside of that, anyways, then I'll have like less as harsh of a retaliation. But anyway, oh God. Thomas Sowell is a Chad, just for the record.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's I think that's all that I have to say right here. And this is my guest, Mr. Marxist. Well, actually, no. Maybe I should like go reading up on the live chat before I actually go off air. So I'm just going to end the call right here if that's okay with you, Mr. Marxist, and just hang out with the chat for a little bit longer.
Yeah, yeah. Bye.
Have a good night. Anyway. Alright. So, I guess I'll just sort of close that down for right now. You guys can just enjoy the art piece that I have going right now. So, how's everybody doing today on this fine Saturday afternoon? Well, that was pretty fun, said JC Armitage. Yeah, I thought so. I mean, Mr. Marxist wasn't as much of a fire breather as I thought that he was gonna be. So he was a whole lot more civil than I thought originally. So I'm glad that we could have that sort of an exchange. But I thought that I got some good points in. There was a whole lot of points that Mr. Marxist brought forth that I forgot to address, which was unfortunate on my part, but hey, it's me, Zach, the Dark Conservatarian. I'm always a pretty forgetful son of a bitch. Metal Minister says working and reading dad jokes. Here's one. I don't trust stairs. They're always up to something. Oh god. Metal Minister, you are a dad. You know that? You are a dad joker. By the way, out of curiosity, Mr. Metal Minister, are you an actual dad? I've kind of always presumed for a while that you were actually a dad yourself, but just wondering out of curiosity. Thanks for showing up, Miss Mista, says Miss Cuttlefish. Fuck Chomsky, that lying shill hypocrite, says Derpy Redneck. Well, you and I might have to have a conversation with that. Like, I'm not disagreeing with what you said, just I do not know specifically the examples of Noam Chomsky being an, outright liar. All I will know is that from what I hear of him so far, it's pretty disagreeable. Aside from maybe some things about military interventionism, I would say that I probably disagree with him more than agree. Well, at least Lib Marx was acting pretty respectful during this debate, i.e. not acting like Chad Spurks as JC Armitage. Indeed, JC. Mifkofis, little one, read some more books. Look up Thomas Sowell. Right? I mean, I think it would help if a Mr. Marxist probably knew a little bit more the ins and outs of practical effects on economics, because that was more of a debate on the, I guess, ethical side and philosophy of economics. You know, capitalism versus socialism, and so forth. Metal Minister says, yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea of thrashing a teenager. He literally doesn't have the life experience to understand the intricacies of what he's talking about. That's fair, Metal Minister. I mean, as soon as he revealed of what his actual age was, I'm not gonna lie, I almost felt a little bit bad myself. Like, I did not take into consideration of how old Mr. Marxist might have been. I advocate abolishing teacher unions and replace them with education vouchers and other schooling models, says Derpy Redneck. Alright, I just want to clarify, in closing of this live stream, when he said trade unions, when Mr. Marxist said trade unions, I thought he was talking about unions or organizations that are meant to trade or out-trade, rather, small businesses as so forth, to try and put them out of businesses. I did not think that he was talking about essentially worker unions. Like, that's what I've always understood worker unions to be, like trade workers unions. But nonetheless, just to clarify right there, if you want to like go engaging in a union that is just meant for trading or out trading businesses, rather, and you in an effort to try and put them out of businesses, that's fine, I guess. It's just that worker unions I get a little bit more on edge about. Again, like I said, I'm not outright against them. I'm not for the government outright banning worker unions within that are meant for the purpose of workers being able to practice activism against their boss that they don't think is paying them well enough. I don't believe in outright banning those, but all the same, just as long as they do not go violating freedom of association and private property within their activism. Myth Cuttlefish says, Miss my husband is forced into a union. He's a firefighter. They're not good. Alright. Tell us more, Myth Cuttlefish. Derpy Redneck says, depending on the union and if they're protected from the state from being corporatized or not. Yeah, exactly. If a union is in bed with government, well, then I'd say that they're even more illegitimate. Now, you can make the same point about businesses being illegitimate if they get in bed with the government, but I would still advocate, in both circumstances, I guess, that you take out the government intervention before you abolish the whatever that we are talking about, be it unions or businesses. Myth Cuttlefish says, I love dad jokes. They make me happy. Myth Cuttlefish married a dad joker, everybody. Metal Minister says, my mother told me I could be anyone I wanted when I grew up. Turns out identity theft is a crime. Oh boy. Yes, I'm a father. Dad jokes are hilarious. Alright, I understand. Metal Minister says, normal people. I lost my khakis. People in Boston. Key emoji. I don't understand that joke, but okay. Myth Kofish says, at metal. Yes, my husband sent that meme to me yesterday. Almost ruined my laptop. Alright, so I think I'm going to get onto that, put in an age restriction on NSFW just to, as a safety precaution, just to more officiate the Discord server. But for right now, Ooga Booga, gib dat for free, boss, says Derpy Redneck. I mean, pretty much. That was, I think that's a Steel Manning summation of this debate. But anyway, for all of y'all who have watched and who will watch Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit that like button down below. If you're a newcomer to the channel, hit subscribe if you like what you see and like what you hear. And hope to see y'all later. There will be a live stream tomorrow, most likely anyways, on my secondary channel, DarkCon Entertainment. We're going to be possibly responding to Ben the Looney and his review on Joker, like the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. But that's all I have to say. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Saturday. You all do the same. Enjoy the rest of your Saturdays and have a very good weekend. See y'all later. God bless. Stay safe.